Hey everyone, welcome back to another quarantine review. I'm finally going to be talking about Timmy Failure, Mistakes Were Made. This is the last one that I had teased ages ago when I started this series. And I think after this, I'm not going to tease any other things that I'm going to be doing. I'm just going to do them when inspiration strikes. Because I've kind of felt like I've had this one hanging over my head, but I've had so much other stuff to do with moving and working on my project, which will be launched probably later this week. For those of you just on YouTube who don't follow me on Twitter or anything, it's actually a new podcast. So anyway, Timmy Failure, Mistakes Were Made. This is based on a book by Stefan Pastis, who is probably my favorite current cartoonist right now. Like, ever since I was little, I have loved cartoons, like newspaper comic strips. Like, I even said when I was little that I wanted to be one when I grew up. I wanted to be a lot of things when I was a kid, but a lot of them revolved around art, and this was specifically one of them. So I've looked up to him for years. I think he's hilarious, and I was really excited when he branched out into writing children's books because he has a very particular sense of humor, and even though it's not usually directed at kids, and some of his humor is kind of more adultish, he has a very witty, smart sense of humor that is perfect for the kinds of kids' books that he actually started writing. Basically, it's about this little kid who is completely and entirely full of himself. He thinks he's the smartest person in the entire world. He thinks everyone around him is stupid. And really, the kid is kind of an idiot. He is really dumb. He very much overestimates his own intelligence. And he thinks that he's so smart that he can have a detective agency. So basically, the series is about him working on mysteries, most of which barely qualify as mysteries. He just thinks that they're a lot more important than they actually are. And a lot of times they get solved completely by outside forces, like not by him at all. Oh, and he thinks he has a 10-ton polar bear, or however much he says it weighs. Like, when I first started reading this series, I thought that this was like a fantasy series. Like, I thought that there really was a polar bear. But then I think by about the third book, I realized, wait a minute. This is like a Calvin and Hobbes situation where the polar bear is not actually there. He just thinks it is. He's imagining that it's there. And that kind of recontextualized a lot of things in the series. And because of that, the way that they recontextualized the entire series for this movie made a ton of sense. In this movie, he is not an idiot. He is still very much full of himself. He still comes up with weird ideas, but instead of it being because he's so dumb that he has no idea how dumb he is, it's more because he has a giant imagination. And I think that that view kind of works when you're reading the books as well. And I never really thought about it from that perspective before. I always just thought it was this kid who was an idiot who thought he was a genius. And in some ways, maybe it kind of is, but I really like the interpretation of him just having a way too overactive imagination. And I think that that works really well, especially in this movie. The way that they took all of the zany, ridiculous humor from the book and made it more subtle and deadpan worked really well. Like, the books are ridiculous, and when I was reading them and I would think about, like, how would they make this into a movie, I imagined animation, partly because they're illustrated. Like, he's a cartoonist, so he illustrates his own books. But the way that they recontextualized the type of humor and those situations, it works perfectly in live action, and I really liked that about it. Even if you haven't read the books, you don't need to have read the books, because, like I said, it's the same story, but it's different, too. I recommend this to fans and non-fans of the book. If you've never read anything by Stephen Pastis, you will still like this. It just has a really interesting, unique vision. It almost feels like a little indie film instead of a Disney film. Because, I don't think I mentioned at the beginning, this is a Disney Plus film. It's the Disney Plus original. It's only on Disney Plus. So if you have Disney Plus, definitely check it out. I totally recommend this movie. Anyway, I think that's going to be all my thoughts on Timmy Failure, Mistakes Were Made. I will see you in the next one. Bye.